Good morning. Welcome to the First Church in Boston, October 16th, 2022. It's lovely to see such a robust crowd out here this morning. We will be doing our usual Sunday service now at 11 to 12, and we're live streamed on Facebook. It can be gotten through the UU First Church in Boston Facebook page. We'll have the live, and you're welcome to come down in the middle of the service if you want to come see us live. We are in person, and it's a beautiful sanctuary. If you haven't seen it, we call it the oldest church in Boston and the newest church in Boston, because this was a radical modernist substitution for an old Gothic structure that lived until 1968 and burned down. It's also called the grooviest church in Boston because of the peculiar way the concrete works out. So come on down. This is October, and I like to do this poem by Dylan Thomas. Especially when the October wind with frosty fingers punishes my hair, caught by the crabbing sun, I walk on fire and cast a shadow crab upon the land. By the sea's side, hearing the noise of birds, hearing the raven cough in winter sticks, my busy heart, who shudders as she talks, sheds the syllabic blood and drains her words. Shut too in a tower of words, I mark on the horizon, walking like the trees, the wordy shapes of women and the rows of the star-gestured children in the park. Some let me make you of the voweled beeches, some of the oaken voices from the roots of many a thorny shire tell you notes. Some let me make you of the water's speeches. Behind a pot of ferns, the wagging clock tells me the hour's word. The neural meaning flies on the shafted disc, declaims the morning, and tells the windy weather in the cock. Some let me make you of the meadow's signs, the signal grass that tells me all I know. Breaks with the wormy winter through the eye. Some let me tell you of the raven's sins, especially when the October wind. Some let me make you of the autumnal spells, the spider-tongued and the loud hill of Wales. With fists of turnip punishes the land. Some let me make you of the heartless words. The heart is drained, that spelling in the scurry of chemic blood, warned of the coming fury. By the sea's side, hear the dark voweled birds. What wondrous love is this? Number 18 is our opening hymn. We'd ask you, if you're singing, please sing through a mask. And like the chalice with this verse, which is the chorus of a Thanksgiving song written by David Roth. May the light of love be shining deep within your spirit. May the torch of mercy clear the path and show the way. May the horn of plenty sound so everyone can hear it. May the light of love be with you every day. And now I'll invite those of you who wish to rise as you are able to the First Church Boston affirmation. Love is the spirit of this church, and service its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek truth in love, and to help one another. Thank you. Please be seated. As far as announcements go, the big one, of course, is this afternoon at 3 o'clock. We will have not only our immediate past organist and choir director, Robert August, but I think 3 more previous ones from other times in the past, in order to rededicate this wonderful organ, which was a little bit behind the building when we moved into the building. So we're doing it just exactly 50 years later, but it takes doing it twice. All right. Yes.
I'm used to meeting up there and here. We have actually 7 different organists. I just wanted to clarify that. Our neighbors in Back Bay, when I first proposed what we would do for this project, I said I wanted a great big old organ musical block party. So I know that it's so important to have community in this church, not just our own community, but to reach out to others in the community. And I thought it was really important to ask people from Trinity Copley, from the First Lutheran across the street, from First Church in Cambridge. So you have some rock stars coming to play, as well as the rock star that's upstairs right now that just left you. So I wouldn't miss this. If you feel like you need to go out and get something quick to eat, please come back for it, because it's going to be a long time before you see this many fantastic organists, including also Paul Sienowell will be with us this afternoon. So you don't want to miss any of that, as you do not want to miss the postlude, which is our dear composer in residence Larry Bell, is his world premiere today. So it's a big organ day. Please come out and support us. Thank you.
Got any more gold stars for the music committee? Also, in a very much more humble way, I will be teaching a course called UU 101. If you're confused by this religion or any aspect of it, whether you've been coming here for 30 years or just walked in the door today, you're welcome to come into the parlor at 12:45. We may have a Zoom set up. I'm hoping we have a Zoom set up to get it out to people who are out in the online world. But at any rate, those who are here are welcome to come into the parlor and talk about Unitarian Universalism for about 45 minutes, and we'll have another session in a few weeks. There is also an announcement for the search committee, I believe.
Good morning. I'm Barbara Martin, the chair of the Ministerial Search Committee, once again inviting you to come talk to us. And this day, when we are celebrating the organ so magnificently, is a good one to remind you that next week at 10 o'clock before the service is your opportunity to join a focused discussion on the role of the arts at First Church. Not only music, which is part of every Sunday service, but the visual arts, the way we've engaged those, things I've heard about theater and drama, theater and dance in the past, photography as we see it now, architecture, which is here all the time. Think of all those things and what they have been at First Church and what you would like to see them be in the future, and join us at 10 in the auditorium next Sunday. There is a sign-up link online with a link in the e-news, but we'd like to have you sign up. We'd like to see that sign, but you can just come anyway. There are also several opportunities remaining to join a general discussion on the present and future church. There will be one next Sunday after the service. There is one on Zoom at 2 p.m. this Tuesday. And there are a couple more, I think another Zoom evening series in the last week of October. Again, look at the link on the e-news and you can sign up, or if that in some way doesn't work on your computer, you can email me or Beth Curran. Our emails are in the announcement and we'll slide you into the sign up. See you all, I hope.
Was there anybody else that has an announcement? Okay. Then we're going on with the anthem.
join me in responsive reading number 531 in your hymnal, The Oversoul by Ralph Waldo Emerson. Let us learn the revelation of all nature and thought, that the highest dwells within us, that the sources of nature are in our own minds. As there is no screen or ceiling between our heads and the infinite heavens, so there is no bar or wall in the soul where we, the effect, cease and God, the cause, begins. I am constrained every moment to acknowledge a higher origin for events than the will I call mine. There is deep power in which we exist and whose beatitude is accessible to us. Every moment when the individual feels invaded by it is memorable. It comes to the lowly and simple. It comes to whosoever will put off what is foreign and proud. It comes as insight. It comes as serenity and grandeur. The soul's health consists in the fullness of its reception. Forever and ever, the influx of this better and more universal self is new and unsearchable. Within us is the soul of the whole, the wise silence, the universal beauty, to which every part and particle is equally related, the eternal one. When it breaks through our intellect, it is genius. When it breathes through our will, it is virtue. When it flows through our affections, it is love.
Thank you, Joanne. I now invite you to come forward if you wish to share anything happening in your life, factually or just observationally, opinion-wise, joys and concerns here. We would take a stone from the dry bowl and put it into the wet one.
I have a big joy to see all of you today and to welcome you at 3 p.m. for the rededication of our beloved church. Thank you so much.
Organ.
Last night I went to a film and dinner with friends. I saw Tar at the Coolidge Corner Theater, which is one of my favorite theaters, and just the joy of being a big group of people, some masked, some not, which was fine and cool and untension provoking, which was also nice. And if you haven't heard of the film, it's about Kate Blanchett plays a conductor. And just watching Gigi this morning and just being struck by the power of the music in the film and then the joy of being in community, celebrating arts, it just was a really lovely connection of all the different things. So that was a lovely joy.
Thank you. I want to do a stone in remembrance of a very good person, Bill Spring, who was a person who hosted our book group. We used to go over on Commonwealth Avenue. We went down to Helen Savage's home until she left for retirement in California. We called ourselves the Savages. Then we went upstairs to Bill Spring's place. We called ourselves the Bookies. He has taken his final bow at the tender age of 87. Fine man. He worked in the government. I can't give you a whole resume of what he did because it would take too long, but he's a very fine individual, and we had some very enjoyable soirees there. Thank you, Bill, wherever you may be.
I want to share a joy with everyone today. So last evening we went to the Jack-O-Lantern Spectacular at the Roger Williams Zoo. If you've never been, you gotta go. Absolutely amazing. And we went with David's daughter and her boyfriend, and we hadn't seen them in about 7 months, and it was a joy to be with them for that and then for dinner afterwards. And we are very grateful to spend time with them whenever we can. Thank you.
Any of the rest of you is certainly invited to come in and say what you're taking joy in that you used to do 2 years ago without even noticing it. But we all are doing that. Thank you for reminding us of that. And I'll put one more pebble for all those joys and concerns which we hold in our hearts unspoken. Yes, our sermon reading is by Bill. From Bill, I should say.
Good morning. This morning's sermon reading is a lovely poem by Mary Oliver. Some questions you might ask. Is the soul solid like iron, or is it tender and breakable like the wings of a moth and the beak of an owl? Who has it and who doesn't? I keep looking around me. The face of the moose is as sad as the face of Jesus. The swan opens her white wings slowly. In the fall, the black bear carries leaves into the darkness. One question leads to another. Does it have shape like an iceberg? Like the eye of a hummingbird? Does it have one lung like the snake and the scallop? Why should I have it and not the anteater who loves her children? Why should I have it and not the camel? Come to think of it, what about maple trees? What about blue iris? What about all the little stones sitting alone in the moonlight? What about roses and lemons and their shining leaves? What about grass? And now please rise as you are willing and able for hymn number 88, Calm Soul of All Things.
Do machines have souls? Last week I talked about the concept of salvation in many religions and in culture generally. One aspect of that subject is the question of where we go when we die, and more particularly, what happens to all the stuff in our minds. And that question leads us from last week's topic to this one. Once upon a midnight dreary, back in 7th grade or so, I made myself memorize Edgar Allan Poe's The Raven. But that prodigious mental effort is going to naught, for that version of The Raven will die when I do. Some forward-thinking people want to achieve immortality in a scientific, not a religious way. They hope to live long enough that thinking machines will come into their own era, and then all those TV commercials from the 50s can just be downloaded from my brain to the robot, and it will live forever. Wouldn't that be great? 4 years ago was the 50th anniversary of Stanley Kubrick's great film, 2001: A Space Odyssey. As many of you know, I belong to an organization devoted to the dialogue between religion and science. The organization is called the Institute on Religion in an Age of Science, abbreviated IRAS, and sometimes affectionately just called IRIS. And in light of that cinematic milestone, they decided to devote their annual conference on Star Island, New Hampshire, to the topic of artificial intelligence, or AI. They did me the honor of selecting me as Minister of the Week, so I got to preach 6 chapel talks, one every morning during the conference. This morning's sermon takes a few of the ideas from these talks. The movie 2001: A Space Odyssey stars a computer named Hal, who is able to think for himself and ultimately kills almost all the humans for whom he is supposed to be caring. Hal is not the first dangerous thinking machine in fiction, nor is he the last. The field of so-called artificial intelligence, AI, is booming today, and we have made great strides in creating computer algorithms which can talk to us, can decipher our speech, and translate it from one human language to another, which can recognize faces and make some sense of a visual field, can diagnose diseases, and which may soon be driving our cars. Now, when I use that word algorithm, I mean simply a procedure. Computers work by codes, detailed sets of instructions. If this is the case, do that, and if the other is the case, do the other. If you were to print out the operating system of your computer or any computer-like device, you would have a long series of ones and zeros that would make no sense to you, but would make perfect sense to your computer. The nearest analogy to a computer operating system in our own bodies is our DNA. But you know that your genetic inheritance is only a small part of what makes you, you. Makes you, you. Get it? AI was an apt topic for IRIS, for artificial intelligence is right at the intersection of religion and science. But here we must make a distinction. The questions presented by AI for particular applications, like driving a car, speech recognition, facial recognition, are quite different from the attempt to create an artificial autonomous agent with something like consciousness. This latter effort is often called AGI, for artificial general intelligence. And it's what I want to focus on this morning, the effort to create a complete artificial mind, or soul. Isaac Asimov named one of his early collections of science fiction short stories, I, Robot. That was later a movie in the early 2000s. Those 2 words implied a machine that had some kind of self-awareness that could refer to itself in the first person. What would it mean to have a machine which was conscious? Would such a machine be able to see deeper into reality than human minds could? Would it be wiser? Would such a mind be subject to human shortcomings such as rage, cruelty, indifference, depression, racism? Or would it be magically free from these flaws? Would we be committing murder if we turned off the computer which generated that mind? One way to ask all these questions is whether machines can have souls. Many thoughtful people will say that's not a helpful way to frame it, because that question only has meaning if we know what a soul is. And souls are notoriously hard to define. The whole effort to define words and to use them analytically so that we can know precisely what we're talking about comes up short when we come to the word soul. All of our Zen wisdom, all of our existentialist and paradox-loving and transcendentalist instincts, not to mention all the popular songs of the last 50 years, arise to say, hey, if you've got to define it, you don't understand it. Soul is just something you have. But of course, that attitude makes the word almost useless for a searching scientific or philosophical inquiry. Some people would say that soul is the most basic thing there is. Emerson, for example, in the reading that Joanne did earlier, the soul exists outside of the operation of cause and effect. Quote, as there is no screen or ceiling between our heads and the infinite heavens, so there is no bar or wall in the soul where we, the effect, cease, and God, the cause, begins, unquote. The individual soul is a manifestation of God, and God is the oversoul, the sum of all souls. Yet in the religion and science dialogue, the word soul is so resistant to analysis that it might be said to hinder rather than help understanding. And yet it has a long tradition in religion. So if we're trying to contribute to religious understanding, it would be helpful to use the concept. When I announced on Facebook 4 years ago that I was preaching on the topic, can machines have souls? One of my retired UU minister colleagues commented in a comment that was quite eloquent for its brevity. No, 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 no. Can machines have souls? No, 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 no. From the religious side, there's a strong argument that nothing created by humans can have the special human quality that we call soul, whatever it may be. Let me sketch some of the religious ideas that support this argument. Let us start with the myths. In the Garden of Eden story in Genesis, God forms the first man, Adam, out of the clay and then breathes into him the breath of life. The clay is non-living substance, but it is God who imbues it with life by his breath. This is similar to Greek mythology, where the Titan Prometheus creates humans out of clay and blows the breath of life into them. That much seems to have been okay in Greek myth, but then Prometheus thinks the humans ought to be able to cook and keep warm, so he steals the element of fire from the gods and gives it to the humans. Zeus gets angry at this theft and sentences Prometheus to be chained to a rock where ravens attack him and devour his liver every day. It grows back. In both the Greek and Jewish perspectives, you don't want humans to get divine attributes. In Genesis, there's the story of the Tower of Babel, where humans were going to reach to the heavens, so God created different languages for them to speak, so they couldn't understand one another and couldn't coordinate the construction. It's not good for humans to aspire to be like the gods. Fast forward to the 4th century Council of Nicaea, when Christianity had been adopted as the religion of the Roman Empire, and Emperor Constantine called all the bishops together to determine what Christianity was. Theologians of the time were pretty sure that God the Father, the first of the 3 Godheads, had existed from all time, but they weren't too sure about the second person of the Trinity, the Logos, which had been incarnated in Jesus of Nazareth during his life on earth. Had the Logos, the second person of the Godhead, exhibited from all time, or was it created by God the Father at or before the time he created the rest of the universe? This question divided the Arians, who said the Logos came later, from the Athanasians, who said the Logos was co-eternal with God the Father. At this council, the Athanasians won out and produced the Nicene Creed, which is still said in most Orthodox Christian churches. One version of that creed says that Jesus was, quote, begotten of his Father before all worlds, unquote. Another that he was, quote, begotten, not made, unquote. What does that mean? In the old biblical terminology, begetting is what a human male does to produce a child, while the human female bears the child. To make something is to form material into a shape, and the thing that a human makes will be non-living. Even a sculptor who forms clay into a human form will have only created a likeness. To make a human from the male point of view, you beget, you father. The Nicene Council insisted that the Logos proceeded from God the Father as a child is the product of his father, not as a sculpture is the product of the sculptor's art. This Judeo-Christian idea that a human can't make a soul is carried into stories like Pygmalion, the sculptor who falls in love with his statue, or Pinocchio, the woodcarver who wishes his puppet into life, and the Sorcerer's Apprentice, where the lazy assistant animates a broom to do his task for him and then doesn't know how to stop it. All of these have unhappy endings, and the moral they teach is that trying to treat a made thing as alive is bound to result in disaster. In Jewish lore, there's a creature called the golem, which was fashioned from dust or clay, but animated using religious rituals and made to perform various tasks. In most versions, the golem could not speak. Usually somebody got hurt dealing with the golem. In the 19th century, Mary Shelley published her novel Frankenstein, or The Modern Prometheus. It's got a subtitle that most people don't know about. This was both one of the first horror novels and one of the first pieces of science fiction. We often call the creature Frankenstein, but properly, Frankenstein was the name of the human who created the monster. This creature not only could speak and read, but reason. It had the ability to murder people and to entertain motives such as revenge and rage. It was designed to be scary, and it was. What I'm suggesting here is that the Judeo-Christian religious tradition and a strain of lore in the culture all concur that beings made by humans, as opposed to those begotten by humans, were not supposed to be animated or to have souls. At the same time, the Industrial Revolution was producing more and more machines to take the place of humans in physical labor, in agriculture, in industry, and the home. In the 20th century, machines were then applied to thinking tasks as well as to manual labor. It may interest you to know that the word robot was invented by a Czech playwright, Karel Čapek, in his 1921 play, R.U.R. The initials of the title stand for Rossum's Universal Robots, which was the name of the company which is making lots of money manufacturing workers for a large variety of enterprises around the world. These creatures are not composed of metal or silicon, but of flesh and blood, yet they are made in a factory, not born in a human way. A plant assembles them just like a Ford assembly line. Though they look about like humans and can talk and interact, they are treated by the management as things. When one of them breaks, it is simply sent back on the factory floor to be disassembled and its parts used in other robots. The conflict of the play R.U.R. is set in motion when a liberal reformer, probably a UU, arrives at the factory insisting that these robots must be accorded human rights. As the plot develops, the company management decides to make the robots more human-like by giving them the capacity to feel pain. This pushes them into a new kind of consciousness, and eventually they revolt and start killing the humans. So R.U.R., the drama which introduces the concept and word robot, also introduces the dread of a robot takeover. Okay, that's a thumbnail sketch of the religious side of the question. How about the scientific? Developments of the last 20 years in neuroscience raise profound questions about how what we call consciousness arises in the brain, how our brain generates our minds. We know a lot more than we used to know about how the brain works, but we still don't know how it generates consciousness. The Enlightenment in the 18th century gave us many great things. Modern science originated there, but it also overemphasized reason as opposed to emotion. The ordinary consciousness and intelligence that we know of is embodied intelligence, and it is tied to human emotions at a basic level. Thus, Descartes was wrong to say, "I think, therefore I am." It would have been more accurate to say, "I feel, therefore I am." As you sit here right now, the feeling of being you is not just your thoughts. You may be thinking, you may be even thinking in complete sentences, but you also might be turning over several streams of thought at once, listening to me drone on, wondering what you're going to have for lunch, replaying the argument you had with your significant other last night or with your mother 3 decades ago. There may be a soup of words floating around in your mind. All of that is part of what it is like to be you at this very moment in time. And it's a set of things that you obviously can't program in advance into a computer. And why would you want to? What we call artificial intelligence is not a program per se. It is a means of teaching a computer to program itself the way the actual brain does. Our brains evolved by a kind of neural Darwinism. There are 1 million billion connections in your brain, and they can fire in circuits. When we're babies, the circuits are firing at random. But soon it becomes clear that some circuits get us what we want and others don't. The circuits that win for us get reinforced, and the circuits that lose get discarded. So we can teach machines to program themselves the same way. This is called deep learning. How will we know if we have succeeded? Some of you may be familiar with the name Alan Turing. Turing was a brilliant British computer scientist who helped the Allies crack the German Enigma codes in the Second World War. In 1953, he proposed a test for artificial intelligence. Can a machine fool you into thinking you're dealing with another human? If you're dealing with this machine in a box and you can't see it. If so, we have achieved artificial intelligence. Can deep learning produce emotion, such as a poet might tap in composing a poem, or a composer might tap in composing a piece of music? An interesting twist on the Turing test was posed by the 2013 movie Her. Anybody see it? A few of you. In that movie, the protagonist, who had broken up with his wife, falls in love with the artificial voice in his new computer. Of course, it turns out badly. Poor Theodore, madly in love, is crushed when he finally comes to realize that Samantha is on intimate terms not only with him, but with 500 other users at the same time. He has always known she's not human, but this drives home the point that she isn't exclusively his. That's Her, the movie. Some clever and imaginative Hollywood writing. I found it stretched my credulity that anybody could fall in love with a being without a body. But I think it teaches something very valuable about what it is to be human. To be human is to be embodied. Our minds are carried by our brains, which are wired into every other part of our body. In the movie, Samantha yearns for a body, but without one, a romance with an embodied human is really not sustainable. I don't know what a soul would be without a body. So I don't know whether a soul can be immortal. By the same token, I have a hard time imagining God, a being with an intelligence and will, but without a body. We're programmed by our instincts to see and recognize faces even when there are no faces. We see faces in clouds and trees and rocks. We can make faces out of clay. We recognize signs of personhood in inanimate objects because our brains have evolved social instincts. We project personhood on the world, and we call it God. Emerson thought, as I said earlier, that God was the oversoul, that God consisted of the sum of all souls. Well, that oversoul at this point definitely would have digital components. We're interacting on any kind of digital media by the algorithms which govern that media. What is the bottom line here? I don't think we've reached the point where digital devices or their algorithms are going to substitute for real people in a deep way. While we may find our personal digital assistants useful in finding a pizza parlor or the next song we want or keeping our calendar, we're not likely to ask them out for dinner and a movie or confide our deepest hopes and fears to them. We may fold them into our entertainment strategy, but it would be a big mistake to look to them for emotional or spiritual sustenance. They are not your new best friend, but they will play an ever-increasing role in our connections with other flesh and blood people. Amen. Now let us receive our morning offering for the advancement of the work of this church. You're invited to join me in extinguishing the chalice with the words in the order of service. We extinguish this flame, the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Our closing hymn is number 100, I've Got Peace Like a River. Found freedom, take it with you into the world. If you have found comfort, go and share it with others. If you have dreamed dreams, help one another that they may come true. If you have known love, give some back to a bruised and hurting world. Go in peace. Amen.